Welcome back to Labari Studio, where every week we dig up the untold histories of Africa, the queens, kings, warriors, and kingdoms that got left out of the textbooks and bring them back into the light. Quick heads up before we start this one. Every story on this channel so far has come from written records, court documents, colonial archives, letters, eyewitness accounts. This one's different, and it's worth saying that plainly up front. Moremi Ajasoro's story comes from Yoruba oral tradition, passed down through generations in Ile-Ife, long before anyone ever wrote it down. It's still commemorated every single year through an actual living festival. That doesn't make it any less important. In cultures where history was preserved through memory, ritual, and performance instead of ink, oral tradition is historical record. And Moremi's story has stuck around for a reason. It's a story about sacrifice with a cost so steep, it still stops people short, centuries later. Before we go any further, had you heard Moremi's name before today? I want to see how many of us grew up without this story. According to Yoruba oral tradition, sometime around the 12th century, the great city of Ile-Ife, considered the spiritual and ancestral home of the Yoruba people, was living under constant threat from the neighboring group known as the Ugbo, sometimes described as forest people, from the surrounding Ilaje region. The Ugbo people raided Ife again and again, burning property, looting goods, and dragging Ife's people off into slavery. What made these raiders especially terrifying wasn't just the violence, it was how they looked. Raiders reportedly covered themselves in raffia palm rods and other forest materials during attacks, giving them an otherworldly, almost supernatural appearance that struck fear into Ife's defenders and made organized resistance nearly impossible. Ife's own warriors, by tradition, genuinely believed they were fighting something more than ordinary men. Moremi Ajasoro was, by most versions of the tradition, a woman of real status in Ife. Most traditions describe her as being originally from Ofa and marrying into the royal lineage connected to Oromio, heir of Ujujua, the legendary founding ancestor of the Yoruba people. And after watching her city suffer raid after raid, she made a decision that put absolutely everything on the line. She would deliberately let herself be captured during the next Ugbo attack. This wasn't a passive move. It was calculated infiltration. Once inside Ugbo territory, tradition holds that Moremi's status and intelligence brought her close to the Ugbo king himself. In some versions, she was taken as his wife, and from that position, she saw what Ife's warriors never could from the outside, the truth behind the terrifying raffia costumes. They weren't spirits. They weren't supernatural forces sent to punish Ife. They were just ordinary fighters, wrapped in dried plant fiber to look monstrous. And dried plant fiber, Moremi realized instantly, burns. Before she ever crossed into Ugbo territory, tradition holds that Moremi made a vow to Esimirin, the deity of the river running near Ife, promising an offering of gratitude if the goddess helped her succeed and get home safely. She didn't specify what the offering would be. She just promised whatever was asked. Hold on to that detail. It matters way more than it seems right now. Moremi escaped Ugbo territory and made it back to Ile-Ife carrying the one secret that would flip the entire war: expose the raffia. The next time Ugbo's raiders came at the city in their frightening costumes, Ife's warriors were ready. Instead of running in fear, they lit the raiders' coverings on fire. Stripped of their disguises and caught completely off guard, the Ugbo forces were defeated, and the raids on Ile-Ife stopped for good. And a city that lived in fear for years got saved because one woman was willing to walk directly into the thing everyone else was too scared to even look at closely. Drop a comment below if you think you'd have had the nerve to let yourself get captured on purpose, knowing you might not make it back, because I genuinely don't know if I would. And now here comes the point where Moremi's story stops being a simple tale of clever heroism and turns into something much harder to sit with. Having pulled off her mission and saved her city, Moremi came back to the Esimirin River to honor the vow she'd made. According to tradition, the river deity's price wasn't gold or livestock, or anything Moremi might have expected. Esimirin demanded her only son, Oluorogbo. Tradition holds that Moremi, though devastated, kept her word anyway, and sacrificed her son to fulfill the promise that had bought her safe passage into and out of enemy territory. Yoruba storytellers have never softened that detail in over centuries of retelling, precisely because the weight of it is the entire point. Moremi's heroism didn't come free. It cost her the person she loved most, and tradition asks every listener to actually sit with that cost instead of looking away. If that ending hit you as hard as it hits me every time, drop a comment and let's sit with it together for a second before we move on. Here's a detail that rarely makes it into the shorter version of this story, and it matters. In Ile-Ife, Moremi is remembered as the ultimate national heroine, credited with saving the ancestral homeland of the entire Yoruba people. But among some Ugbo and Ilaje communities, oral tradition remembers her very differently, as a woman who infiltrated their community under false pretenses and betrayed them from the inside. Both traditions exist because both communities lived through the same conflict from opposite sides of it, and neither version cancels the other out. That tension is actually part of what makes Moremi's legend genuinely historical, rather than a flattened myth. Real conflicts produce real, divided legacies, and this one still does, 8 centuries later. And here's the thing about this story. As far as oral tradition functions as a record, it's remarkably consistent. The Edi festival, still celebrated every year in Ile-Ife, commemorates her sacrifice and Ife's deliverance, connecting the present-day city directly back to her story every single year. In 2016, a monument called the Queen Moremi Statue of Liberty went up in Ile-Ife, standing 42 feet tall, at the time, the tallest statue in Nigeria, built by around 200 Nigerian youths using locally sourced materials on the exact ground where Moremi is said to have lived. A modern physical acknowledgement of a story that had already survived roughly 8 centuries purely through memory before anyone built her a monument at all. So why does a story this central to an entire people's identity still get treated in wider history as just a legend and nothing more? Honestly, it's the same bias this channel keeps running into over and over, just wearing a different outfit. Oral tradition gets treated as less credible than written record, even when it's preserved with the exact same discipline, the exact same consistency, and the exact same institutional weight. An actual annual festival, actual physical monuments, actual continuous transmission across 800 years. A written colonial document gets treated as history. A story kept alive through ritual gets treated as folklore. That distinction says a lot more about who was doing the writing than it does which version is more reliable. What did that bias actually cost? A precedent buried, the same way it always gets buried on this channel. Proof that African societies built extraordinarily durable systems for preserving their own history without needing outside validation or outside ink. Proof that a woman's sacrifice, told and retold with total honesty about its cost for 8 centuries straight, deserves the exact same weight as any treaty sitting in a European archive. So, who was Moremi really? She was a woman who chose to be captured, deliberately, to save a city everyone else had given up defending against something they genuinely believed was supernatural. An intelligence operative before that was even a word. Someone who gathered the single piece of information that changed the entire war. A mother who kept a promise that cost her everything she had left. And right now, she's honored every single year in a festival that's run for roughly 800 years in a city that never once stopped telling her story. Why does this matter today? Because Moremi's legend isn't backed up by a treaty or a court record, and it doesn't need to be. It's backed up by a festival that still happens. A city that still tells her story to its children. A monument that finally caught up to 800 years of memory. That's its own kind of historical proof, and it's exactly the kind this channel refuses to skip past, just because it isn't written on parchment. Reclaiming Moremi's story means treating oral tradition as history, not as its lesser cousin. It means telling the full story, including the parts that don't feel good. The child she lost, the community on the other side that remembers her as a betrayer. And it means understanding that a legend this carefully preserved for this long, by this many generations, has already survived the one test that matters most. Nobody let it die. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this one, hit subscribe and help spread her story by sharing. We drop new episodes every week about the African men and women whose power shaped history. Next up, we're heading back to Kongo, 2 centuries after the kingdom's Christian conversion, for the story of a young prophet who claimed to be possessed by a Catholic saint, occupied a fallen capital city with an army of followers, and was burned as a heretic for trying to save her nation her own way.